I want to talk about the Florida Gators for a second. So, the Florida Gators are a team that they have a new head coach and Billy Napier. They have a over/under win total of 7.5. So, how good will the Florida Gators football team be in 2022? Because I think that many people are kind of selling the Gators short. I think there are some people who think that this is a 6-win team, but me personally, I think that they can win between 6 and 8 games this year. Maybe 9 games if everything goes right. And their schedule is pretty favorable, okay? Because they only have 3 road games this year. And I don't know if I'm looking at that right, but looking at the schedule, they only go on the road 3 times. So some of your biggest matchups are going to be at home. Week 1, you host Utah, the defending Pac-12 champions. At home, you have Kentucky at home. Then you have to go on the road, face Tennessee. And then you have LSU, A&M at home as well. The only biggest away games that the Florida Gators are going to be played this year on the road are going to be against the rival Florida State, and on the road against Tennessee. Vanderbilt, they should be able to take care of business there. And by judging the Gators schedule, I see 5 to 6 automatic victories. Okay, I can just go ahead and point them out for you. USF, Eastern Washington. I don't know why I'm struggling to say Washington. 2-0 or 2 wins there. Missouri's quarterback situation is abysmal. If you go and you watch their spring game, oh my God, 3 wins there. You should be able to beat Vanderbilt, Florida State, South Carolina. I'll probably give you that. That's 6 wins there. So your next 2 wins probably going to come against more tougher competition, but you definitely have a great opportunity to beat Kentucky. You're playing that game at home. You're playing LSU, A&M at home as well. So I expect Florida to be able to take at least 1 or 2 of those games. And on top of that, you have Anthony Richardson at quarterback. And I have a theory called the quarterback superstar theory, right? So I think that if you have a superstar quarterback and you just give him an average team around him, he's good enough to win you at least 7 games. And we presume that if Anthony Richardson takes that next step in development this year, he's not only going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football, but he's going to be pretty much a lock for a top 10 pick in the 2023 NFL draft if he decides to declare. And one thing that I noticed when I watch Anthony Richardson is that every time he comes in the game, he just makes plays. It's really magical. And I'm not going to compare it to Tebow in a sense, but it's really majestic. Because I don't know what it is about him, but he's just really special when it comes to making plays. It seems like no matter what it is, he just finds a way to make a big play happen, rather that be with his legs or his arms. And I don't really know how to describe it for real. It's just kind of magical, which is why I kind of said that it's Tebow-esque in a sense. Because if you go back and you watch Tim Tebow played, the dude was magic. It wasn't a play, throw that he couldn't make. Every time he tucked the football, he was a threat to take it to the house. I kind of see similarities in Anthony Richardson's game. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson is Tim Tebow. I'm not going to be disrespectful to one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of all time. All I'm saying is that Anthony Richardson kind of has some Tebow-esque magic to him. And I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking the wide receiver position for the Gators as well. They don't have a lot of depth, but I mean, you don't really need to have 5, 6 great wide receivers on your team. All you really need is 2 or 3 that are able to get the job done, and you have that. Jacob Copeland transferred out, but you do have Justin Shorter, Xavier Henderson, Whitmore who returns. Shorter was tied for the most receptions on the team last year with 41. He also had 550 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaged 13.4 yards per reception. Xavier Henderson had 20 26 catches for 277 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and he racked up 10.7 yards per catch as well. Whitmore is probably going to end up being your slot receiver. So the depth after these three is probably going to be everybody's concern, but I'm not too worried about it. As long as they can stay healthy, I think that the wide receiver position should be straight. When it comes to the running back group, however, I think that this may be the strongest position on Florida's offense. They have a lot of talent, a lot of depth, and many Gators fans don't even know who's going to end up being the week 1 starter, and they're probably going to have a rotation. You're probably going to see 3-4 guys who have roles in this offense when it comes to what they're going to do on the ground game. Remember, Florida had one of the best rushing attacks in all of college football last year, and I said this last offseason around this time that I wouldn't be surprised if this was a top 10 rushing attack going into 2021. And that statement pretty much held true. You have Lorenzo Lingard, who has been getting a lot of praise coming out of spring camp, had a really phenomenal spring practice. He had a really good high school career. He was highly touted when he was coming out of high school. He initially committed to the University of Miami, but he ended up transferring out. I think that he could get a pretty good amount of carries this year, and he's really explosive, really fast in the open field. Anytime he gets the ball, he's a threat to make it a track race. Anytime. This is one of the fastest players in college football. You have DeMarcus Bowman there, Naquan Wright, who has 76 carries, 326 rushing yards, averaged 4.3 yards per attempt, and had a touchdown. Montrell Jackson is a transfer from Louisiana. He followed Billy Napier to Gainesville. He had 162 attempts last year, 838 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, and had 5.2 yards per attempt. So I'm expecting him to also have a good amount of carries this year as well. If I was somebody who had to predict the running back depth chart at the moment, I probably would go Lingard, Johnson, Wright, and then I'll have Bowman. But it's really up to debate about that, and it's going to be decided. We're going to see how things progress throughout fall camp and whatnot when it comes to the running back position. But this is definitely a great, healthy conversation to have, because anytime you have to debate who's going to be your starting running back because you have so much talent in that running back room, is always a great situation to be in. I don't know how the tight end situation is going to play out. I was trying to look up spring notes. I was talking to a couple of Florida fans that I know, and they couldn't really give me a justifiable answer about how tight end is going to play out. So it's just one of those things that we're just going to have to wait and see. The offensive line, many Florida fans feel really happy about where this offensive line is. It's a good amount of talent, experience. You also have some young guys who can step up as well. This could be one of the better offensive lines that the Gators have had in a while. The offensive line over the years for the Gators has kind of always been a big question mark going into the year. But this year, I think that there is a lot of confidence going into this group. And Billy Napier, during his time for Louisiana, has always produced some really good offensive lines. He has a couple of offensive linemen who are currently in the NFL, who are starters or either really good backups. So I think that the offensive line could end up being above average this year, maybe threatening on being pretty good. And if the offensive line holds up and Anthony Richardson gets a good amount of time to throw the football, I think this offense could be better than what it was last year. Last year, the ground game really carried this offense. The passing game was really inconsistent, especially with the fact that Dan Mullen couldn't decide on who his quarterback was. Even though it looked as if Anthony Richardson was the better option, he still felt as if he had to keep rolling with Emory Jones. So I'm really excited for what Florida can do on the offensive side of the football. And really, the depth at wide receiver shouldn't concern anybody. If they can stay healthy, that's all that matters. Now, if injuries end up being a factor, okay. But let's just cross our fingers because we try to be optimistic over here, and let's just have the presumption that the wide receiver group is able to stay fully healthy. But even if they do have some injuries, I'm pretty sure that they can have a couple of guys who are able to step up. On defense, they definitely should take a step up in the right direction, because I don't think that the defense can get any worse from what I saw from Todd Grantham. And some people may disagree with that because things can always get worse. But with the coaching staff that Billy Napier has assembled, this is a really good staff. And a lot of people have praised it. And I think that on the defensive side of the football, Florida is going to be great. You're going to have a really good defensive tackle, and Dexter, he had 50 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, or 2.5 sacks. You have edge rusher Brenton Cox, who had 8.5 sacks last year, led the team. He had 41 tackles, 4 pass deflections. Ventrell Miller started in 2 games last year before getting injured. In 2020, the year prior to 2021, he had 86 tackles, 3.5 sacks. So he's a really good linebacker when he's on the field. Jason Marshall is a cornerback that I'm really excited to see. I think he could end up breaking out this year. He started in a few games last season for Florida. He had 23 tackles, 3 pass deflections, and an interception. He was a 5-star recruit, the second best cornerback coming out of the 2021 recruiting cycle. He's a super physical corner with great press and man cover skills. He reminds me a lot of J.C. Jackson, currently with the LA Chargers right now. Really good with his hands. He's really physical on the line of scrimmage. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this year. And their safety duo is really good. One of the best in college football. You have Trey Dean, who had 88 tackles, second on the team. He had an interception, a couple pass breakups. Then you have Rashad Torrance, who had 87 tackles, 2 pass deflections, and 3 interceptions, which led the team. So this is a Florida Gators team that definitely is capable of being able to win 8 games this year. But I probably would have them around 7. But I definitely feel I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up winning 8. And I think that 9 wins would probably be the best case scenario for the Florida Gators, year 1 under Billy Napier. And I don't think there are too many Gators fans that are expecting anything crazy to happen in year 1 under Billy Napier. I think if they get 7, 8 wins, they would be really satisfied with that. And even if you get 9 wins, you're going to be extremely enthusiastic about that because their over-under win total is 7.5. So I definitely feel this is a good shot that they could win 8 games. It really just depends if they're able to beat Texas A&M, LSU, or Kentucky, and I definitely feel that they can end up winning 1 or 2 of those matchups. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia this year. I definitely feel they have some ways to go, but you never know because upsets do happen. But Georgia seems that they're reloaded and they're ready to have another run at the championship this year. So overall, I think that Florida should be around a 7-8 win team. I think that this is a team that kind of is a little bit under the radar in a sense because we look at the fact that they have a new head coach and the fact that they may not have the greatest depth at wide receiver, but this is a pretty solid football team. It's just the fact that Tennessee and Kentucky look to be so good this year, especially Tennessee with how much production they have returning on the offense, and you got Hendon Hooker, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. But if Anthony Richardson ends up popping off and he's as good as what we think he is, then I think Florida could end up being the second best team in the SEC this year. It may not end up being Kentucky or Tennessee. It could very well be Florida. But let me know how you guys are feeling about the Florida Gators going into the upcoming 2022 college football season down in the comment section down below.